Good morning, Who Dat Nation. It is week 14. It is do or die time for the Saints to have any reasonable chance at the 2021 postseason. My name is Jeff Nowak, WWL digital sports producer, getting you started here with our week 14 pregame live chat brought to you by Bud Light, the Bud Light Ingredients to Saints Success live chat. That is the full title. Bud Light's ingredients are proudly printed on the label. It's hops, barley, water, and rice. Pretty simple. The Saints ingredients, they seem to change every week. This week, one of those ingredients is Alvin Kamara. He's going to get back. So that is at least one playmaker. One playmaker the Saints have of this roster that, felt like it had some, hasn't had them all year. But we're in here. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be Taysom Hill at quarterback again. As has been talked about all week, he has a splint on his finger. He's dealing with mallet finger, and I have a hard time saying mallet finger without going like this. Mallet finger. It's like a one finger quotation mark. Technically, it's his middle finger, but I don't want to flick off the camera, so we'll go with the pointer finger. Anyway, we're going to talk about this game. We're going to get you all set up for it. Again, it's Saints-Jets, noon on CBS. Saints are 3-point favorites in this game, which I think is a good indicator of, just how gettable this game is, how rough the season has been for the Jets, and just in terms of, top to bottom, this is not a very good team. This is not a very good roster. It's not a roster that's ready to win. And this is a game the Saints have to win. Mathematically, okay, fine. They're not eliminated from the playoffs if they lose today. But, when you look at the schedule remaining and you look at the odds to go 5-0, they're slim. The odds to go 4-1, they're slim. You got to win this game. You have to win this game to have a chance to even feel like you have a chance. If you can't beat the Jets, it doesn't matter if you have a mathematical chance of getting in the playoffs. You don't deserve to get in the playoffs if you can't beat the 3-9 team. And that's what the Saints are looking at today. I think we're going to learn today, one way or another, whether this team is capable of being competitive. Because let's face it, they haven't been for the last month plus. I don't include that Falcons game. I think they were competitive in the Falcons game. They took a lead late in the game, so you can't say they didn't have a chance. That's the only game where you felt like they, in this stretch, in the fourth quarter of a game, they had a chance to win. I mean, the Titans game, they had a 2-point conversion to tie. So, you can say they were competitive, but it was still a long shot, especially when you consider the Saints haven't converted a 2-point. The Saints haven't successfully run a 2-point conversion since 2018, which is wild in itself. But this is the day that either the Saints show that they have some life, that they can get Alvin Kamara back, that they can get Taysom Hill rolling and have any hope of getting to the playoffs, or, we start to look toward the offseason. I think after today, if the Saints lose, you start to really consider Ian Book getting some reps at quarterback. You don't want to put him in there as long as the season still has hope at a certain point. It just makes sense to see if he has anything in the tank, take away the game pressure, say, hey, let's see if we can put some quality reps together and go from there. But as far for now, this is still a playoff caliber team. This is still a team well in the hunt for the playoffs. If you look at the standings, they're right there, 5-7. Sounds like a death sentence. There's still 5 games to play. You have that extra game. You have a game in hand against the Bucs. 2 other teams in the division, both the Panthers and the Falcons, are 5-7. I think one of those teams is going to get in. One of the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons is likely going to get in the playoffs. And you just have to put together 3-2 or 4-1 down the stretch to get there, right? If the Saints finish the season at 8-9, they have a chance. If they finish the season at 9-8, yeah, that makes sense. I still can't do the math. 17 games kills me. If the Saints finish the season at 9-8, I think they're in. 10-7, they're definitely in. So just got to win some games. You got to string some wins together, and we're going to see how that starts today. Again, like I mentioned, Alvin Kamara is there, but as is the case has been with the entire 2021 season, you got weird stuff happening. Cam Jordan's not there. He's on the COVID list. That ends a 172 consecutive game streak of games played. He has not missed a game in his 11-year career. When you talk about all the players who have missed with injuries this season, whether that be Michael Thomas the entire season, Will Lutz the entire season, or all these guys who have been out multiple weeks, Marcus Davenport, for instance, This guy has been as healthy as anyone in the history of the NFL. We're not even just talking to Saints. We're talking the history of the NFL. And that streak ends because of COVID. And that's really depressing. It's depressing for me as a viewer. I think it's got to be even more depressing for Cam, who, takes a lot of pride in being available and being healthy, and he's not out there. So that's a bummer for him. It's a bummer for the Saints. The good news is they are getting Marcus Davenport back healthy. He has 2 stretches of missed games. He's still the team's leader in sacks despite that. So he's a big part of the defense. He's a big part of that pass rush, and it's going to be big getting after Zach Wilson today. Saints also get CJ Gardner Johnson back. They can get CJ Gardner Johnson back. He has been designated to return. It sounds like he'll be back. I don't want to say he's going to be out there because I think anytime you get activated from injured reserve, you're inherently a game time decision. You have to show that you're ready to play. If he does that he can get back on the field today. This is the first time since he was hurt. I want to say against the Falcons. Yeah, I was in that Falcons matchup, and he went on IR after that. But yeah, first, before we get any further, again, my name is Jeff Nowak, WWL Digital Sports Producers, the WWL Radio pregame live chat brought to you by Bud Light. Make sure to throw a comment, question in the chat, and we'll get to it in the back half, and we'll go from there. But first, I want to play what Alvin Kamara said this week, which, he really indicated that he could have gone last week. And I think it's an interesting thing where you have to make a decision throughout the season. And I say this a lot, it's not always, can he play? It's should he play? Could Alvin Kamara have gone out there last week? Yes, he could have. He said that. Sean Payton didn't feel comfortable doing that. And I think that's a smart decision, knowing that even if you have a chance at the playoffs, it's a long shot. And you don't want to do anything that's going to significantly damage Alvin Kamara's long-term viability, either whether it be this season or beyond. Saints have enough long-term injuries they're dealing with. They don't need to be dealing with more. And the interesting thing Alvin Kamara said was that while he's been listed on the injury report with a knee injury, the past few weeks, it's actually been a hamstring injury that's been holding him back. He had the knee injury against the Falcons. He missed the next game, and then rehabbing, kind of getting healthy ahead of the Eagles matchup, he tweaked his hamstring. He blamed the shoes. He wanted to burn them. He ended up throwing them away. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm healthy. I was healthy last week. Sean told you. Sean, yeah, he gave you a little.
He said you said it was hamstring.
He said I was close.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, close as in I could have put my helmet on. I mean, I felt good, but I'm definitely healthy. I'm back healthy.
So you had a hamstring issue, like that set you back?
Yeah, just a little bit. It was before Philly, rehab and trying to come back, and I kind of just tweaked it a little bit. It wasn't anything major, but I think Sean played it right. Like, I wasn't mad at him for, what he did. He was like, I just think you need another week. I'm like, I kind of want to help us win, but it's all good. It was really the hamstring. I'm not even gonna lie, the hamstring. It was a little minor hamstring tweak. It didn't even have nothing to do with my knee. My knee was good. I think it was the cleats I was wearing when I was rehabbing. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna say what brand they were, but I think it was the cleats I was wearing. And I threw the cleats away. The one time I changed my cleats, so I knew that was the issue. It wasn't me.
Maybe you should have burned them.
I didn't burn them. John Gress, one of our trainers, he was gonna burn them. He was gonna burn them for me. He was like, "I'm going to your locker right now. I'm about to go." I said, "Go burn them." They were still there in the morning, so I just had to throw them away. I had to get the energy. I had to cleanse the locker room of that energy.
There you have it. Alvin Kamara cleansing the locker room of that terrible cleat energy. And man, this team, this offense has just struggled so much without any valuable playmaker. I mean, Mark Ingram, give him all the credit in the world. He's actually not there this week because he and Ty Montgomery both tested positive, and they're also on the COVID list. So 2 more players who are not active because of COVID. But he's filled in gamely. He's done what he can. You know what he is at this point in his career. And yeah, he's not Alvin Kamara. And you don't have Michael Thomas. You don't have Adam Troutman. You don't have any of these weapons who could feasibly help you. And it's been rough to watch. So hopefully, with Taysom Hill in his second week as a starter, hopefully he figures out that finger. That didn't appear that the plantar fascia injury limited him, and that's a good thing because I think the running game is going to be a massive part of the offense today. One more thing we'll get to in the first half before we go any farther. So a couple things to make note of today. There were a few COVID-19 replacement practice squad elevations. So these are some of the kind of rules that have been put in place since COVID to help teams kind of manage when they are suddenly without players. So you have 3 players who have been called up in that capacity. You have guard James Carpenter, who's going to fill in, on the offensive line, where you still don't have Ryan Ramczyk. You should get Teron Armstead back, so that'll help. You don't have Andrews Pete, he's out for the season, but you do have Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy. So that shuffle is going to be interesting. I'm sure you'll continue to see Calvin Throckmorton, James Hurst. Beyond that, Deontay Harris is suspended for the next 3 games. So it sounds like Aesop Winston, who's been on the practice squad, speedy second-year wide receiver, might get those opportunities. We don't know, but in other situations, you'd probably want to put Alvin Kamara back there for punt returns. But him coming back from injury, I doubt you're going to see that. So it seems like you're going to see Aesop Winston Jr. in the return game in some capacity, probably Marquez Callaway filling in as well. That's another one. Wide receiver Kevin White also called up, more of a practice squad addition. The Saints waived Kenny Stills earlier in the week and brought him back, so he's still there. Kenny Stills and his hands are still on the Saints roster. Hopefully he can have a bit of a better performance. 5 catches on 22 targets thus far is not endearing. Sean Payton, indirectly called him out. He didn't say his name, but it was clear who he's talking about. He said basically the interception that happened before the half against the Cowboys, where it kind of tipped off Kenny Stills' hands. It was a call for that coverage. The throw went where it was supposed to go. Could have been thrown a little earlier, but Kenny Stills, you got to catch it. Instead of catching it, he popped it up. Micah Parsons made a great play. And instead of points before the half, it was a turnover. Cowboys went down. Saints went into the half down 6 instead of tied or down 3. And it really changed the game. It changed the game. Should have been guaranteed 7. It's guaranteed 3, probably 7. Instead, 0 and a turnover. And that's just unacceptable. That said, as you see how the Saints have managed it, it does look like this was the plan all along. I don't know if he was waived because of the injuries and then brought back, or because of the drops and then brought back, but it looks like they were really just managing roster spots. And a guy who's on a veteran minimum contract, you can say, hey, we're going to waive you. We're going to bring you back later in the week. It's not going to change anything financially because he's already on a minimum and you're going to re-sign him to the minimum. So I think it was more about just managing roster spots. You saw that earlier in the season with Aldrich Rosas back when he was the kicker, and he was waived and then re-signed later in the week. It's just a way to manage the last few spots on your roster with guys are going to clear waivers, and you don't have to worry about picking them up, or you don't have to worry about dropping guys who might get claimed elsewhere, right? So while I think people have seen about as much as they need to see about Kenny Stills, he is still going to be out there. And in fairness, they don't have many options. Lil Jordan Humphrey is questionable. Still unclear whether he's going to play. You have Deontay Harris suspended. Obviously, you have no Michael Thomas. So basically, you're looking at Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Kevin White, Kenny Stills, Aesop Winston as your wide receivers. The Saints also called up tight end Ethan Wolf. I don't know how big of a role he's going to have today, but it might be a sign that Juwan Johnson works in at wide receiver. So keep an eye out for that. Because the Saints are just desperate for pass catchers. And if Lil Jordan Humphrey is unable to play, I think that probably means you're going to see Juwan kind of filling the role that Lil Jordan would have. I don't know how adept he'll be at doing that, but I think that might be a route the Saints go. So keep an eye out for that. Beyond that, you also have Chase Hansen you also have Chase Hansen called up as a linebacker. And obviously, as we mentioned, CJ Gardner Johnson is activated from injured reserve. Don't know what kind of role he's going to have, but he's available to play if he's healthy. So that's good. Moving forward here. So we had some scheduling difficulties with Deuce. We weren't able to get him live, but we do have some content from Deuce McAllister from earlier in the week. So I want you to hear from Deuce. And he's mostly just lamenting about the state of how rough this season has gone. 5 straight losses, obviously. That's the first time since 2005 that the Saints have lost 5 consecutive games. They're trying to break that skid today. They were 5-2 at one point this season. That 5 on their record has not changed in quite a while. It's the other number. It's the 7 that once was 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2. That's the struggle. But here's Deuce.
It's just tough. I mean, every team is dealing with it, but it seems like just when you start to get a little bit of good news, something else slaps you, and it's just like, all right, what's next? And that's kind of how the season has gone. And this team has just kind of said, all right, what are we going to have to deal with this week? It's just been something right after another week in and week out. And, obviously you wish Cam that he gets healthy. You wish Mark that he gets healthy. And both those guys, they're vaccinated, so they have to have 2 negative tests. That's a tight turnaround for him to be able to make the
No Deontay Harris. We knew this was coming. And, in past years, you say, well, he was our main returner. But all of a sudden, without Michael Thomas, and he's really been the receiver. I know Kamara, when he's been available, how many times he's been targeted and receptions. But Deontay Harris, as far as yardage, is our number one receiver. So that's another big miss.
Well, you're going to miss him, and it's going to be tough, Bobby. Here's the thing. You wished when you had him, you won a couple more games.
Right.
I mean, that's basically the position that you're put in. And you can say next man up, but it's going to be a tall task, and we all know it. It's going to be a tall task to replace him and, his production. The thought of him just being back there on punt returns has forced teams to not kick it certain ways. You won't have that for the next 3 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see, what moves they make. We figured that they will promote one of the guys up off of practice squad to take on some of that load. Normally that would have been a situation where you say, hey, well, you'll use Alvin on punt returns, but he's coming back from injury himself. So I highly doubt that you put him in that situation.
And there you have it. There's Deuce. And yeah, I mean, he's right. It's been a tough season all around. It's been tough sledding at nearly every position. One of the consistent pieces outside of a one game injury is Deontay Harris. He's been their most consistent pass catcher. He's an all-pro return guy. He's always a threat to hit big in the return game. And he's not there. He's suspended 3 games due to that offseason DWI arrest. You were, hope that it would have gotten to the offseason and just worry about it next year. Not the case. The Saints have to deal with it now. At least that means they don't have to worry about it next year. But no one wants to worry about next year until this year's done anyway. So it's just a question of how you get it to work and whether this team can actually win a game. But again, like I said, my name's Jeff Nowak, WWL digital sports producer. And we're going to get to your questions after a quick break here. Make sure to throw them wherever you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, make sure to throw them in the comments there. And we'll get to them after a quick break. Just hang in there with me. All right. Okay, so let's get to some questions. We got Daryl DeWright. I don't know if that's a name or if that's trying to say something, but considering Taysom's finger injury, how many passes do you think we will see? Now, this is a good question, and this is something I've talked about throughout the week, especially after watching what the Patriots did on Monday. And I thought it was telling that during one of Sean Payton's press conferences this week, he was answering a question and then kind of oddly shifted into an answer about the Bills-Patriots game that, from what I could tell, and it was confusing at the time, and I went back and watched it again, didn't really seem to have any provocation. Like, he wasn't asked about the Patriots-Bills game. He was talking about Taysom Hill's finger injury, but he kind of just shifted into an answer about the Patriots-Bills game. And that's telling, because when you go back and watch the Patriots-Bills game, the most apparent thing is, A, there was a ton of wind, so it limited the passing game. And how the Patriots responded to that in a victory, they threw the ball 3 times all game, 3 times and won. And clearly that was something that was on Sean Payton's mind. And, he basically said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously you want to open up the game, but if you don't have to, if you can do things a certain way and it's effective and you don't think they can stop it, you keep doing it. You keep doing it. Why are you taking a risk and trying to force a square peg in a round hole when you have the round peg? Just grab a different peg. And I think, if we're being honest, the Saints' best way, best option, best route to win this game will be just straight up ground and pound, punch you in the face, punch you in the mouth, and see what you do. Offense. You have Alvin Kamara, you have Taysom Hill, you have big guys. You have Juwan Johnson, you have Nick Vannett, you have Ethan Wolf. You have good, effective blocking receivers. Traquan Smith is actually, say what you want about Traquan Smith. He's an excellent blocker at wide receiver. Marquez Callaway is a solid blocker. I don't know if they'll have little Jordan out there, but if he is out there, he's another big dude who can block. So I think you run a ton of heavy formations. You run a jumbo lineman. You just kind of go power right, power left. You pull the guard. You see what happens. And if you're able to generate 4 or 5 yards on first down, you got 3 more downs. Pound away. It's going to be hard for a defense to force negative plays when the quarterback can run the ball and is dedicated to running the ball. And once you make them react to it, then you open it up and you maybe take some shots on play action. But I see no reason that this team should open up throwing. I really don't. And I think from the Jets' perspective, you're going to want to play the run. So, there's no answer in terms of how well the Jets defended, whether the Saints can block it up well. But I think you have to go into this game saying we're gonna be dedicated to power football. With that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints throw the ball less than 10 times today. If they're ahead or if they're in control of the game. If they're behind, game plan goes out the window when you fall behind. Once you have to score, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to score whatever way that makes sense. And if there's openings in the passing game and you have to trust Taysom's finger, then you do it. But as long as the Saints are in control of this game, and I consider being tied or being down 3 to be, holding some form of control in the game. If it's a 1-score game and you have the ball, you have a modicum of control. If you're down more than 1 score, then you that kind of goes out the window. But I think, the first half of this game, I don't expect to see a lot of pass plays. And I say that because I think that that's the right approach. I'm not even predicting what Sean Payton's going to do. I'm just saying what I think is the right approach is just block it up and run. Do it. You have the running back. They have to account for him. And that said, I do like a swing pass out of the backfield. I consider that like an extension of the run game. So when we're talking about pass attempts, I'm talking about passing attempts downfield. If Taysom Hill throws the ball 20 times and, 15 of them are behind the line of scrimmage, I consider that to be fewer than 10 pass attempts. Because essentially that's just a long handoff. But I don't think you're going to see a lot downfield. And I don't think you should see a lot downfield because they don't have anyone to throw to downfield. I think you'll see some shot plays. I think what you do is you run the power run game, you run QB power, you pull the guard, you have a fullback, you have Alex Arm out there, you pull the guard, and you just have them kind of double block, create a hole, and Taysom gets to decide what seam he wants to split through. And then you have Alvin Kamara come in motion, or whoever it is, ASAP Winston come in motion the opposite way to try to draw the defense. And that's what you do. And then when they load up and try to stop that, that's when you hit them with the play action, the hard play action, you hit over the top if you can. If you have a guy that can go out there and get it. I haven't seen that yet this year outside of Deontay Harris. So that's going to be the question, but I don't think you're going to see a lot. And I don't think you should see a lot. I think this team needs to figure out how to be a running team. Because the fact is they still have Pro Bowl offensive linemen. Yeah, it's the only position they have that they're here. Let's put it this way. Let's kind of slow it down. There's one position on the offense with multiple Pro Bowlers. It's the offensive line. And the running back is a Pro Bowler. He's a star. Why would you force a passing game when you haven't shown that you haven't dedicated yourself to the run game? When it's clearly your best offensive ability is to run the ball. That's it. I think it's that simple, especially when you have a quarterback who has a brace on his finger and you can't trust his. I think that he can throw the ball, but I think you're going to see instances where he just loses feeling. It's cold. It's going to be cold. It's New York in December. It's outdoors. It's hard to grip a ball, period, under those circumstances. And I think you're going to see instances where if you put too much on Taysom Hill in that hand, you're asking for problems. So we'll see what happens, but I would not expect to see a lot of passing. That said, I do think if I had to pick a fantasy sleeper today, it's Nick Vannett. Because, I don't think you're going to see a lot of downfield passing, but I think you'll see a lot of screens. You'll see a lot of misdirection type plays where it's just a dump off to the tight end. And Nick Vannett can move. He is surprisingly quick. Last week, I was at the Dome, and they flashed up the top speeds for the Saints. 3 of them were Taysom Hill. 1 of them was Deontay Harris. The other one was Nick Vannett. He got up to about 17.5 miles an hour. He's a big guy. He's 6'6", about 250 in that range. And he can truck. He can get some wind behind those sails. And I think that's something the Saints will probably take advantage of today. So if you're looking at a last-second streaming tight end, Nick Vannett's probably available. And I think that at the tight end position in fantasy football, you're really just trying to find 10 points somewhere. If someone catches a couple touchdowns and you get a big game, wow, great. But really all you're trying to do is get 10. Can you get 10 out of the tight end position? Because that's a huge advantage. And I think Nick Vannett, of all the guys out there, if you're looking at a guy like Cole Kmet, if you're looking at Austin Hooper, all these guys who might be available, I like Nick Vannett. They used him last week. He looked good. He looked effective. I don't see any reason he's not going to catch it. Even if Taysom only throws the ball 10 times, I think 4 or 5 probably go to Nick Vannett. When the other 5 go to Alvin Kamara or whatever in that range. And there's no reason to think he won't have 5 catches, 40, 50, 60 yards, and he's going to be a touchdown option. Because when you get in the red zone, you don't want to trust Taysom Hill's arm. You're going to line up power. And if it's going to be a passing touchdown, it's probably going to be, Alex Arma, a guy, when you line up in power and you run a hard play action and the tight end or whoever it is at the end just leaks out and gets that touchdown. You see it all the time because teams are loading up in the middle, and it's really hard to account for someone leaking out of the backfield and you get them. So that's my bet. If I'm betting, I'm taking the over on his props. If I have him in fantasy, I'm starting him because my option was Cole Kmet or Nick Vannett, and I went with the guy with the V in his name. But yeah, anyway, long answer. Good question. Let's see. Let's get to another one. Little on the nose. We'll allow it. To be fair, none of the receivers caught COVID. Just the running backs and Cam Jordan. So I guess the take still lands. Wow, that's a long one. Hold on. I got to read it. I can't even see my face. Injuries have killed this team. The Saints have beaten Green Bay, Tampa, and New England this year. 3 of the top 10 teams in the NFL at the moment. We just have taken it on the chin, try to get lucky and win some games and tank depending on the next game or two. Have a great offseason rehab. I mean, no one on this team is interested in, let's see what happens in 2022. I'm sorry, they're not. If they were, Taysom Hill wouldn't be playing. They signed him. They signed Taysom Hill. He's going to be on the team next year. If anyone on the Saints was thinking, okay, this is over, we don't have a chance, we're not trying to make the playoffs, he wouldn't be in there. You wouldn't be having him play with a bum finger with a torn plantar fascia. You wouldn't. You would throw Ian Book out there and say, hey, we don't have a chance. Don't do it. Just kind of build confidence. We're going to run the offense. We're going to see what happens. No, you have Taysom Hill in there. If they weren't interested in winning, it would be Ian Book and Trevor Siemian. No question. This team wants to win. This team thinks it can win. It's trying to make the playoffs. No one is thinking about 2022. If you lose this game, I think that changes. And I think it would be irresponsible to continue running Taysom Hill out there with all the injuries, with everything he's dealt with, at least at the quarterback position. If he wants to continue to do his other role, then that's his decision. But I think it would be irresponsible to be like, yeah, he's our starting quarterback, knowing all the things we know about his health and things that could affect him long term. You don't want a guy to impact his career playing in games when the team has decided it's over. And the Saints wouldn't do that to a player. They wouldn't do that to Taysom. So I'm not going to get into 2022. Sure, you want to get everyone healthy as much as possible going into next year. But that's going to be the case one way or another. I think the Saints are worried about today, so I'm going to be worried about today. Michael Brown, I agree. The wide receivers are terrible. Why bother passing with the QB situation? I mean, I don't think terrible is the word. I think just what they are. I mean, these are depth receivers. These are good NFL players. They're not leading receivers on teams. I mean, it's just a fact. Most of them weren't even drafted. I mean, Kevin White is the only one who was a first-round pick, and he's not a guy anyone has confidence in, right? You're talking about Marquez Callaway, and the guy you don't have, Deontay Harris, an undrafted free agent. Traquan Smith was a third-round pick. These are guys who I think you're comfortable with as you're down the roster. Your wide receiver 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have a wide receiver 1 on this roster, and I don't think that means that these guys are bad NFL players. I think you're asking them to do something that they are not capable of doing in, going up against the top flight cornerbacks in the NFL, right? If Michael Thomas is out there and you go play the Packers, Packers are a bad example. We'll move on. If Michael Thomas is out there and you go face Tre'Davious White, right? Tre'Davious White is on Michael Thomas. Even if he shuts him down, that means that Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, whoever else is going up against, the second cornerback on the depth chart, the third cornerback on the depth chart. Without a number 1 wide receiver, you're moving those guys up to 1, 2, 3. And that's just a recipe for difficulty. Like, it's not that these guys can't make catches. They're not out in the open field dropping wide open passes. They're struggling to make contested catches. And those catches are contested because they're not able to create separation. So we need to be able to do one of those things. And, cornerbacks are really good. Just look at Marshawn Lattimore. Look what he's able to do against some of the top receivers in the NFL. These are star receivers. And they, more often than not, fail in those one-on-one matchups because Marshawn Lattimore is just that talented. And teams have talented cornerbacks across the NFL. So asking a guy who is not suited to go into those one-on-one matchups to try to win and then saying, oh, he's terrible, he can't win, he can't beat Jair Alexander, he can't beat Stephon Gilmore. I don't think Marquez Callaway came into the league with anyone thinking he could beat those guys. So it's just a situation where you have a setup that might work and you never got to see if it would. I think if you move Marquez Callaway down that pecking order and he's your third wide receiver, I think that's an excellent third wide receiver. I think he's a guy who can help you win games if you have a couple other playmakers who draw attention. He's not a guy who can go and, if you only have to dedicate one defender to any receiver on the field, there's no one out there that forces a bracket, that forces any type of unique coverage. You're going to struggle. And that's what you're seeing from the Saints. But I agree that trying to force the ball through the air when there is a chance you could at least, control the ball and move it and kick field goals and give yourself a chance to win games, not turn the ball over and, let the defense work. I think you have to do it. And I agree with that. Okay, this is an interesting question from Meister. It's kind of off topic, but yes, I do. And the reason isn't because of anything on offense. The reason is because I think this defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. And when it's not even about the team being healthy, I think if you have Jameis Winston, if you have a quarterback you have confidence in and a defense that you have supreme confidence in, then yeah, you are a Super Bowl contender, right? You have a quarterback that can go out and win games, and you have a defense that can pin you to situations where the quarterback just has to be effective to win those games. And yeah, that's what a Super Bowl contender is. A favorite? No. A team that could feasibly go out and win a Super Bowl? Yes. And so that includes Michael Thomas. If you had Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas on this team with the defense you have, even with the rest of the injuries, I think that you have a chance to win a Super Bowl. I don't know how good of a chance it is, but you're definitely in the picture. You're definitely making the playoffs, and it's just a matter of winning a few games. And that's what the beauty is of the NFL playoffs. It's one and done. Anyone can get hot. And if you have a quarterback who can sling it, then that gives you a better chance. So yeah, I would say yes. I don't even see I disagree with this. And because the idea is he's going to be scrambling. You're talking about a scrambling quarterback. I'm talking about designed runs. I don't want to see him constantly dropping back and like hopping around and seeing what happens and then running. I want to see just smash mouth football where you line up and show you're going to run and you run it anyway. Maybe you throw some misdirection, maybe you run some counters, maybe you run some crack tosses, some sweeps. But generally speaking, I want to see them just say, hey, here's the play. Can you tackle me? We're going to block you. Good luck. Because I don't think the Saints do that enough. I think sometimes Sean Payton is such a good play caller. He's such a good play designer. And you overthink it sometimes when in reality, your best offense, the shortest distance is straight ahead and you just got to go. You only need 10 yards. If you can average 3 yards, you're going to get there. If they can't force negative plays and you can consistently get 3, 4, 5 yards, you have 4 downs if you want to use them. And I don't think anything exhausts a defense more than a team going out there and just pounding the ball and getting first downs on 3rd and short. Because, if you're getting a first down on 3rd and long, it's the defense won that possession and you made a escape type play. You made a low percentage. You completed a low percentage play. The defense still won that possession, but they still have to keep going. When you convert on 3rd and short, it means the defense lost that set of downs and still has to stay on the field. So you just continue to wear them down. And that's what teams have done to the Saints. It's not what the Saints have done to other teams. Look, go back to the Eagles game and see what happened in that game where the defense really wore down. And that's what the Eagles did. The Saints have a lot of the same types of pieces as the Eagles do. And I think that the way this team has developed in terms of injuries and absences, I think that that's the game you look at the tape of and say, hey, maybe we copy some of these elements. I don't know if you're going to – Sean Payton has never been an RPO guy, but I could see him adapting to some of that, knowing what he's looking at. Well, right. I mean, they have the worst room, but it's not because of the players that are there. It's because of the players that aren't there. Right? I mean, you didn't pick up Marquez Callaway saying, oh, he's the wide receiver 1. You have Michael Thomas, who's your wide receiver 1. Right? I mean, the depth there isn't good there. But it's not about the guys who are there being lesser than you thought they were. It's about the players that you don't have, and I think there's a difference there. It's about construction and it's about availability. And yeah, I mean, I think there's probably 2 wide receivers missing from this room, right? I think the Saints would like to have Emmanuel Sanders. It didn't work out because of the cap and they had to let him go. I think they'd obviously like to have Michael Thomas and he was hurt. So, I think I just think that when you look at the wide receivers that are there and the expectations that should have been had for them, I mean, they're doing what you thought they were going to do. Deontay Harris has overachieved what you thought he could do as a wide receiver. You already knew what he could be as a returner. And yeah, I mean, I think Marquez Callaway probably got a little overhyped in the preseason, but I mean, a second-year UDFA, how many times do you have the type of season that he's having, even with those kind of missed expectations? 6 touchdowns, however many yards. Second-year guy out of, that wasn't drafted, I think that's not uncommon. And I don't know if saying that they're terrible players is the answer. It's not about whether you want them on the roster. I think you do. It's that you just don't have the guys ahead of them. So I think we're saying similar things, but I think putting the criticism on the players themselves who are exactly who you thought they were, I don't think that's fair to them. See, but I agree with that. But again, you have Alvin Kamara out there now, so that helps. And last week that wasn't an issue. So I don't see why it would be an issue this week if it wasn't last week. That was a question last week, was how effective can Taysom Hill be running with a torn plantar fascia? It's a painful injury. It's not exactly it's more of a pain tolerance injury than a, concern over re-aggravating it type injury. And it wasn't an issue. So what did seem to be an issue later in the game was that finger. And, the Kenny Stills interception was not his fault. interception where it got tipped out of his hand. You can't pin that, or he got his hand hit. You can't pin that on the finger, but it's still, a bad play by him. And I think it was caused by his bad habit of kind of crow hopping when he needs to just deliver the ball. But those last two, they looked like finger interceptions to me. The one to Trayvon Diggs was just a bad read, but it still got delivered too far inside, or too low, not enough depth on the throw, which allowed him to undercut it. Trayvon Diggs is really good, so he does that to people. But it didn't seem to have the life on it. You saw a couple throws later in the game that didn't get intercepted, that just didn't look right. When he can rifle a ball in, when he can just grip it and rip it, he looks better throwing it. When he's trying to throw a touch, I think that's where you lose it with that finger. But until you have any indication that the foot is an issue, why would you treat it as such? And I don't think it has been. I think that is something that they can actually mark in the pros list in terms of what is available. I mean, he ran. He did. What are you talking about? I mean, how many times do you see a quarterback have 10 carries for 100 yards? I mean, in the second half, the issue was you got behind by too much. You got behind and you had to throw it. It wasn't that they didn't want to run the ball. I mean, they did run the ball, especially when the game was close. When the game was within 6 points, they did use that QB run game. I think he had 11 carries. He had 100 yards rushing. So, I think that's, to me, the issue in that game was you didn't have Alvin Kamara. So what Mark Ingram was able to do was not effective enough to really open up some options there. Alvin Kamara makes you a little more multiple. He's a much better pass catcher. He can get outside and catch swing passes that, again, like I said before, kind of like extensions of the run game. There's little sprint outs. And I think that's how you're going to move the ball. But last week was tough. I mean, once you get behind by 2 scores, you can't just pound the ball on the ground. You got to make up points somehow. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the foot injury is what the issue was. Yeah, well, this is what you're right. Well, we're saying the same thing here, which is I think that the Saints in this game, knowing the hand issue is what it was, you install a lot more power offense throughout the week, and you execute it in the game, right? The injury to Taysom's hand didn't happen until midway through the first quarter. You already have a game plan established. There's only so much you can change. You only practiced so much throughout the week. You didn't practice anticipating a finger injury. It's Taysom Hill's first start. The offense is going to be a little limited in terms of you're installing new things, and you only have so much time to do that. So when the injury happens, you can't just throw out the entire game plan and say, hey, we're going to use the game plan from week 12 of last year, right? And that's why I think this week, when you saw how it went, you saw some of the issues. You got the injury. You don't have a lot of these options. You don't have Deontay Harris. You have to make a change. And I think that's something that this week, yeah, it's a good example where, it's 3rd and 2. Yes, you're running it. They might load up 9 in the box. Your job is to put 9 in there and block them. And I think that's what you have to do. Anyway, I think that's about it for the questions. I appreciate everyone who jumped in there. We're just past 11 o'clock. We got about an hour until kickoff. So I want to let y'all go. Make sure to check out the pregame show, which is ongoing on WWL AM 870 FM 105.3 and the Odyssey app. That's Bobby Hebert, Christian Garrick, and Mike Detillier bringing you up to kickoff. Then they're going to hand off to Moose and the Deuce. That's Mike Haas, voice of the Saints, and Saints color analyst Deuce McAllister. And sync up the TV to the broadcast, and we're going to get there. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube that you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching somewhere else, there's the channel below. Video updates daily. Make sure to reach out. Let me know what you think of these videos. If you'd like to see anything different, if you'd like to hit different topics. It's been a weird season. It's been a frustrating season. Haven't been able to do as much of the kind of exciting, happy type feature type stuff that I would have liked to do. because everything I end up having to post is about, oh, this guy's injured now. This guy's injured now. This guy's coming back. So that's been frustrating. But I think my guess that kind of reverts today. I think the Saints win this game. I think it's going to be close, though, because if it goes the way I expect with a heavy emphasis on the run, it's tough to blow teams out doing that. So we'll see what happens. But that's going to be it for me. Again, Jeff Nowak, WWL digital sports producer. Check out odyssey.com/WWL for the latest content. And that wraps up this week's pregame live chat brought to you by Bud Light, the Bud Light ingredients to Saints success live chat. Bud Light with the ingredients proudly displayed on the label: hops, barley, water, and rice. Have a few of those today. Enjoy the game. Try not to get too upset, and drink responsibly. All right, y'all. Who dat?